Hey, welcome to the Driver Mod. Welcome to the Driver Mod Hub here. We've got some exciting information to go over with you today. I'm recording this the day before the GTD Nurburgring lap time is expected to be released. But before we have the actual concrete time, I kind of wanted to put my thoughts out on what I think the time will be and go over some reasons as to why I believe the time will be what I think it's going to be. So thank you for clicking on this video. If you're not subscribed, click that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment what you think the time will be. There's been a lot of variability with the times that people have been posting about out there. Being this is the first manufacturer to crack 7 minutes, I mean, we can all but assume that it's cracked 7 minutes. I don't think Ford would be going through this much effort to do a full little trailer, 15-minute video on the lap time if it did not at least crack 7 minutes. So let's get that out of the way. I definitely think it cracked 7 minutes, 100%. But let's get in some of the lap times of previous cars and why we can use those cars to kind of maybe forecast what this car is truly going to put down at the Nürburgring. Now, as you know, Ford was out there back in October, November timeframe doing promo videos and stuff, and the consensus was, because they didn't release the time, we posted about there being like a weather issue or inclement weather, so they weren't able to get the time and we'd have to wait till the spring. Well, it turns out that was all just a ploy and a decoy to maybe get us off the subject and kind of give us a smoke screen, if you will, so that they could actually get out there and do this. So let's start off with the time that I think the Mustang GTD is going to put down on the Nürburgring time. And I believe it is going to put down somewhere in the 647 to 650 range, which we'll start with our baseline car. Now, the baseline car that we're going to start these comparisons with is actually going to be the GT350. Why not? That is absolutely my favorite Mustang. We own one, of course. So we're going to start with that. So the GT350R put down a 7 minute and 32 second lap time. It is a 3,700 pound car. It makes 530 horsepower and it's a manual transmission. That's about 45 seconds off the pace of what we expect the GTD to be. So we'll move to our next little subcategory of vehicles, and we're going to focus on the two vehicles actually. They both came out about 2017, 2019, and that is the C7 Z06, 650 horsepower, 650 foot-pounds of torque, 50-50 weight distribution, shorter wheelbase, lighter weight, and then the 2017, 2019 Camaro ZL1, more for the wheelbase and the actual size of the vehicle, weight, still 650 horsepower, supercharged. Those cars put down lap times in the 713 to 716 range. So that puts us 25 seconds off the pace. The GTD has 815 horsepower. It has a way better suspension system, more aero. I expect the GTD to actually weigh about 3,700 pounds. Yes, it's going to have the supercharger on it, but when you factor in all the carbon fiber body panels, the lightweight brakes, wheels, and other composites, I definitely think the GTD is going to be in the 3,700 to 3,800 pound range, which is a huge advantage when it comes to lap time. So it's probably going to weigh less than a Camaro ZL1. It's going to have 150 horsepower more than the ZL1 with a better suspension and aero setup. The next car we'll talk about is the C8 Z06, and though this lap time is kind of not official, unofficially it did put down a 710 around the Nürburgring. It was definitely expected to do significantly better. I remember when that car was first released, they were targeting a sub 7 minute lap time as well, and here we are 2.5, 3 years later, and finally the verdict is out. It did not crack the 7 minutes. Now, this was not done officially by Chevy. This was done by a third party. And the general consensus is a lot of lap time was left on the table. The driver didn't have much experience with the car. And then also, the main takeaway from the car itself was the fifth gear specifically did not allow the car to accelerate and pull as rapidly as you would want to on the track. And if you go back and watch the video on that, the way the driver is operating the transmission, it definitely seems like the driver is not very familiar with this car. So some even believe this might have been like, he might only have like 1 or 2 laps in the car to actually try this out. And the last car we'll talk about as far as the American cars go, with the lowest time of any American manufacturer, and that is the Dodge Viper ACR. Now that is a manual transmission only car, shorter wheelbase. It weighs significantly lighter, 645 horsepower naturally aspirated, and 600 foot-pounds of torque. So the torque number is kind of close to the GTD, but again, it's 170 horsepower short. But it has all the aero, it has the brakes, it has the wheelbase, and it has the weight advantage. After talking about all the American cars, I definitely expect the GTD is going to beat sub 7 minutes. I don't think there's any question there. But as we move into the faster cars on the end of the spectrum, when it came to cars to crack 7 minutes, the top 2 cars that most impressed me with what they are. Their setup was the 992 GT3, which did a 6 minute 55 second with only 500 horsepower. But again, it's got a short wheelbase, dual clutch transmission, decent aero, and of course, Porsche suspension. And the other one that's kind of in that ballpark is the Lamborghini Huracan Performante. I thought that was very impressive for that car to do that, being that it's all-wheel drive, only 640 horsepower, naturally aspirated. It's got a little bit of active aero, clever aero with it. But that was really, to me, out of the cars we've spoken about so far, that and the Viper ACR are the two ones that stand out the most to me as far as the lap time goes. But again, it's 170 horsepower short on the GTD. It probably weighs closer to the GTD's weight, and the aero and suspension setup on that car probably is not as comparable to what the GTD is going to have. So when you add all that together, the GTD being similar in weight with a lot more power, a lot more torque, better suspension, and more aero, I definitely think we're trending in the right direction. That was a 652 by the Lamborghini Huracan Performante. Now we're kind of getting into the big hitters. Now these next three cars, I would be extremely surprised if the Mustang GTD was able to reach these lap times. And here's why. We'll start out with the lap times. These lap times are a 644.97 seconds, a 644.84 seconds, and a 643.616 seconds. That 643 was done by the AMG Black Series. And then the 6 minute, 44 minute lap times were done by the Porsche GT3RS 992, the most recent one. That's incredible. A 540 horsepower car doing a sub 645 lap time. And the other one was the Aventador SVJ. The two I want to focus on is the Porsche GT3RS 992 and the AMG GT Black Series. The reason I want to focus on these two cars is the Porsche GT3RS, again, 540 horsepower, and it was able to do this lap time of sub 645. Active aero, really short wheelbase, significant weight advantage over the GTD. We're talking probably 500 pounds at least. And on a track like the Nürburgring, I definitely think power around a lap like the Nürburgring is definitely not as critical as something like suspension, weight, and handling are. And the GT3RS has that in spades. I definitely think the wheelbase is going to hurt the GTD's lap time. That longer wheelbase makes the car harder to get around corners. Usually a longer wheelbase is more steady and stable in a straight line, whereas your shorter wheelbase cars are better around the corners. You'll get the car to rotate a little bit better. That weight advantage, you're not putting as much load and strain through the tires, and over a 13-mile lap, you could definitely start to see some tire fatigue and tire compound strain midway or halfway around the lap. Again, it's 500 pounds heavier as well. So with all those factors, I definitely think, could the GTD go faster than a 645? Maybe, but I think it would take a special tire to do that. I don't know if the Michelin Cup 2Rs that are going to be equipped, I'm assuming it's going to be on a Carbon Series GTD with the performance package on it, so with the active aero. I don't think it's going to crack 645. I really think that would be tough, and the AMG Black Series being there at 643, that car's got a lot more power. It is less weight, and it is also 50-50 weight distribution. And some good aero on it. So I really think that would be tough. I really think it would be tough for the GTD to break that threshold of a 645. I definitely think a 647 to 649 lap time is definitely on the table. I just don't think it's going to be able to get up to that level. I mean, from where we started this, we're talking 45 seconds faster than a GT350R, which weighs about the same, has 300 less horsepower, manual versus auto, less aero, and not as advanced suspension. So 45 seconds over 13 miles. In order for the GTD to achieve this 647 to 649 time, it would have to be just over 3 seconds per mile faster than the GT350. I could definitely see that being the case. As the lap times get lower and lower, the amount of speed you'll have to carry becomes exponentially harder. And ultimately, I definitely think the GTD will fall short of the 645 lap time. It won't just barely beat the 7-minute targeted lap time. I think it'll come in significantly, roughly 10 to 12 seconds under that targeted 7-minute lap time, and be the first American manufacturer to beat 7 minutes. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree with this. We've still got our GTD allocation in the works. It's been a long process, but we're absolutely not in any rush. This is still going to be a very difficult venture and very difficult to accomplish, but we're going to give it everything we got. I appreciate all your support here at the Driver Mod. If you're new, again, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Your support is always greatly appreciated. Thanks again, guys. Take care.